Hello and welcome to Climate Action for Associations. Today we're joint hosting an event with BEIS, the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. If you've not tuned into a CAFA event before, Climate Action for Associations supports membership organisations with providing practical information and guidance that they need to transition to net zero. Today from BEIS, we have Sam Lux, who's a policy advisor, joining us. We've got Jack Semple, CEO of EAMA, the Engineering and Machinery Alliance, and James Selker, who's the CEO of the Manufacturing Technologies Association, and who is also a non-executive director at Reliance Precision, an SME in the engineering and manufacturing sector. Sam, I just thought you guys, we could just do a quick whip around and you could just talk from a really high level perspective around the why you're here today, and also Jack and James, specifically the industries that you represent, and a little bit more about your associations.
Sure, yeah, so if I start, I'm Sam Lux from the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. I work in net zero public engagement, and specifically I'm in Andrew Griffith MP's private office for the time being, helping to deliver his net zero small business campaign in the lead up to COP26. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. And this week's a really special week for us. We're promoting some sector specific content that we're piloting on our new website, and that includes manufacturing, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. Shall I pass to James?
Sure. Thanks very much. My name is James Selker. I'm the CEO of the Manufacturing Technologies Association, and in short, our members provide all the technology at the beginning of any manufacturing process, so engineering based. So that's machine tools, it's robotics, it's measurement, it's everything that you put in an engineering based factory. And I'm also, for my sins, the non-exec chairman of Reliance Precision, that is a subcontractor in the north of England and also in Southern Ireland that manufactures subsystems. So it's a subcontractor largely and exports worldwide for instrumentation, very high precision machinery primarily.
Thanks, James. Jack Semple. I run the Engineering and Machinery Alliance, better known as EAMA, which is an alliance of 10 trade associations working across the machinery and component supply chain. And we represent somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 companies. The climate change and net zero objectives really have come at the center of the issues that we're facing. They're absolutely central to the sort of work that a trade association should be doing in helping to advise, give information, help to share knowledge, and in some cases provide services for companies looking at net zero. I think there are a number of different aspects. I think we are all, like many companies, at a relatively early stage, some at different stage than others, and we're very pleased to take part in this with CAFA and with BEIS, so that we can all learn and help to drive forward on net zero.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, James. Thanks, Sam. So, Sam, you're going to run us through exactly what BEIS is obviously developing this week. Obviously, you're developing some sector-specific guidance, and manufacturing is one of the sectors that you're focused on. But I know in terms of the Climate Hub, the SME hub that you've got a range of resources and evolving set of guidance there as well. I know that you wanted to share a little bit more about that today.
Thanks, Ali. Yes, I will share my screen. Can you confirm that's showing up now?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, brilliant. I've got quite a lot to get through, so I have to stop myself from waffling. So this is the Together for Our Planet Business Climate Leaders campaign, and it's all under the umbrella of the UN's Race to Zero, which is the largest alliance of organisations all over the world committed to net zero emissions by 2050 at the latest. Because we in the UK are hosting COP this year, it's going to take place in Glasgow. And yeah, COP26, for those who may not know, is the world's biggest climate climate conference, and it's going to be the biggest summit that the UK has ever hosted, with over 30,000 delegates. So because of all this, we have our own UK specific brand or campaign called Together for Our Planet. And that has a public engagement arm, but also a net zero engagement work programme. And all of that is spearheaded by Andrew Griffith MP, who as of November 2020 has been our net zero business champion. And he has various work streams, one of which is a FTSE 100 campaign, trying to get as many of those top 100 companies to sign up to the Race to Zero by COP, but also a small and micro mass mobilisation campaign, which we're going to be talking about today. And the main goal of that is to get as many small businesses in the UK to sign up to the Race to Zero and make that commitment. So probably preaching to the converted, but small businesses are an incredibly important part of the net zero journey, making up over 12.5% of our total territorial emissions and over 99% of our business community. So they simply cannot be overlooked if we're going to achieve the government's target of net zero by 2050. Besides the principal goal of getting as many sign-ups among small businesses, we're also hoping to raise awareness more generally about climate change among small businesses and their consumers. Our recent research actually shows that most businesses do know and care about climate, but actually don't necessarily know what to do about it. So another aim of the campaign is to provide really simple, practical advice to small businesses looking to take those first steps. And then finally, we're also trying to generate as much momentum as we can in the run up to COP26 in November. So a really high level timeline. The whole campaign centres around a digital platform, which launched sort of unofficially in March, and we got lots and lots of feedback, and then built it up and hard launched in May. And ever since, we've continued to add and build to that. We also have a series of regional events running alongside our digital campaign. We've had 4 of those, and there's 2 to come. So London and Scotland will be taking place in September, if that's of interest to anyone. So there are various strands to the campaign at the national level. Besides the normal government comms channels, we also have this really exciting task force of corporations who have committed to helping us reach the small business community, and each one of these has a project or a series of commitments, and they range from training programs to helping us to collect case studies. BT featured our launch promotions on their BT Tower, so it's really wide ranging, and it feels kind of a level of public-private partnership that's unprecedented in the net zero world. So next level down is the regional events program that I mentioned. Then we also have a place-based engagement program, so working with local authorities, growth hubs and LEPs, among other local actors. And we've just started, we've nearly finished developing a Train the Trainer programme. So that's a pack of resources that we can provide to third-party organisations to help us reach businesses. Again, if that's of interest, then please let me know. And then finally, we have our sector specialisation strand, which centres around a working group that meets monthly, and that's largely trade associations, BROs and other industry leads who really act as a sounding board as we develop campaign materials to make sure that the content is relevant to their members. So launch, as I mentioned, happened late May. The Prime Minister invited around 10 businesses down to Downing Street to say what they've been doing to reduce their emissions, and we had a really momentous comms push among those task force members and our other partners. And then since then, we've had a couple of themed weeks trying to maintain that momentum. And one of those is actually happening now, the sector themed week. And so we have a series of events that we're pushing on social media, including this one. So I encourage you to go and have a look what else is going on this week. So I thought I'd just say a little bit more about Race to Zero. As I mentioned, it's the largest alliance of all kinds of organisations committed to net zero. So we have universities, large businesses, investors, etc., and they all have their own routes to join. But small businesses, which is what we're focused on, join the Race to Zero via the SME Climate Commitment. And that is through a global platform called the SME Climate Hub. Now, when we started developing this campaign, we thought it made the most sense to embed our campaign page within that website, because we're essentially linking to their commitment. So we didn't want to send businesses to too many places. So it's all within the same website. So to make the commitment, it's really easy. It's linked to throughout our page, as is the international toolkit as well. But the page itself is UK specific. So all the resources and advice on there has been created with UK policy in mind. And it's also tailored to maybe the micro end of the SME spectrum, just because we wanted to be as accessible as possible and not leave out those with no prior knowledge of sustainability and perhaps, no staff dedicated to net zero or reducing emissions. So the idea is that we'll provide a one-stop shop for businesses looking for advice and help with net zero. So what happens after signing up? Lots of things: access to resources to measure and reduce emissions. I can say a tiny bit more about that in a second. A monthly newsletter with new updates and opportunities, including events and competitions. The chance to feature on government channels, as I mentioned, really keen to promote case studies. Of course, starting to take steps to cut emissions, that's the whole point, with lots of support, and then a short annual progress report as well. Now, the SME Climate Hub, who's that international partner that we're working closely with, they're working on a consistent reporting framework at the moment, and the idea is that that will be detailed enough to be useful and adequate, but not too onerous and simple enough for the average SME to fill in easily. They'll also provide a suite of educational resources that they'll keep building up, and a free carbon calculator tool as well. Plus, you'll be able to build your own profile on the website. That's actually under consultation at the moment, so we can't definitively say this is exactly what it looks like, but we have a rough idea. So I've just thought I'd show you that, because that question comes up a lot. So also on the platform, you can find case studies, really important, we think, to show businesses who've actually taken steps themselves to reduce emissions and can talk transparently about the challenges and the benefits that they've experienced. And we're always looking for more. So if you know businesses who might be interested, then yeah, please get in touch. Leading with positive messaging, so not all about climate and emissions, but also about saving money, reaching new customers, and being ahead of the curve as and when regulations come in. So this is the list of cross-cutting advice that we began with on the SME Climate, on the UK Business Climate Hub, and the idea is that these are useful to all kinds of businesses, no matter what their sector. So it's sort of a menu of starting options, if you like, and each one of these is a drop-down box, so you can find out more. So there's further resources linked, but actually we had lots of feedback suggesting that what businesses wanted was more sector-specific advice. So we recently built this sector filter function. So we're working with industry leads in a few pilot sectors. There's 4 up at the moment, and there's 2 more to come quite soon. So for example, agriculture, we work with DEFRA, with manufacturing, Make UK, retail, the Retail Sector Council, and tech with Tech UK. So working with organisations who already have a lot of great work going on in this space, and then pulling information from that and presenting it in a nice, clear way. So yeah, I'd really encourage you to go and have a look at the manufacturing advice. It's certainly not set in stone. We're piloting this at the moment, and we want to make sure that the messaging is clear and useful. So definitely willing to take feedback and continue to make improvements. So you can see these are a few of the actions. So renewable energy generation, improving manufacturing processes, and upgrading your manufacturing equipment are 3 of the actions on there. This is the SME climate commitment. So again, this is your way into the Race to Zero. So if you can commit to achieving net zero by 2050 and disclosing that yearly progress report that I mentioned, you will be recognised by the UN as sort of on your net zero journey, and you'll receive a lot of support after making that commitment. And just to mention, this is a pretty simple form, but it's about to get even simpler and shorter in the next few weeks/months. This is the International Tools Library. Again, that's on the wider website. It's got tons and tons of resources on there, and there's a filter and sort function. Actually, again, we've had feedback suggesting that it's a bit too much and not very easy to navigate. So we've recently added this highlight section at the top. So each of these sets out the top 2 or 3 resources for each of these stages. So that if you don't have the time or inclination to go through that big library, you still can, but you don't have to. You can just use the most highly recommended tools. I thought it might be interesting to show you the latest stats. Actually, as of today, we have 1,433 signups in the UK. And the next best is the US on 49. So we're doing really well when we look at the international comparison, but actually we still have much higher ambitions and want to go a lot further. So we'd really appreciate your help. Sorry, this is a little bit overwhelming. I need to prune these graphs a little bit, but I just thought you might also be interested in the regional breakdown. So London are leading the way if you look at signups alone, but if you take into consideration how many businesses there are in each area in the first place, actually Scotland are doing the best, interestingly. And then a sector breakdown, again, might be useful. So manufacturing currently make up 7.88% of the signups in the UK. So yeah, it'd be really nice to boost that. If you can help us spread the word, that would be much appreciated. And finally, I'll just finish with the ways that you can get involved. So first, and probably most obviously, signing up yourself, and then encouraging others to do so. So once you've signed up, you do get a pack of digital assets that you can use to advertise that you're a part of this journey. And then also, as and when new features on the website and new events and opportunities come up, it would be great if you can help us push those out. If you know of any events or campaigns that we can get involved with and synergize with, also very helpful. And then finally, if you know of any stories, or if you'd like to tell your own story, then of course, yeah, really, really excited to hear more case studies. So yeah, that's it from me. I don't know if we do questions now, Ali, or shall we move on to Jack and James?
Thanks, Sam. I think that's really useful and really interesting. So a really high level overview. I think what I'm keen to do is to perhaps move to Jack and to talk specifically about his experience from his members around the steps that they're taking to obviously reduce their emissions, and also the barriers and the blocks that they're facing as well. And I think it'd be also, Jack, to get your view and your perspective on the types of resource that is available through CAFA and obviously the BEIS Climate Hub as well, and see if your members are actually using the resources that are available and the steps that they're taking, and if they need anything more, what else would be helpful in terms of information and guidance. Sorry, that's a lot of questions, but I do know that once you start talking, I probably won't be able to get another question in.
I will time limit myself very strictly, Ali. I think the sort of the overarching view from my perspective, representing 10 different trade associations, is that this net zero and climate change is something that's very new, that isn't going away, that there's a lack of clarity about, and there's a lot of opportunity for. And I think that is exactly the sort of environment where trade associations need to get involved, can get involved, and can really deliver value for their members. I have to say also for the government, I think working for BEIS, working with trade associations who have a cohort of members in their sector that they know well and engage with well, can really help you to achieve your objectives with, if I could say so, outstanding value of money for the taxpayer. But from the point of view of the trade associations, what do we exist for? We exist to advise, we exist to provide information, We exist to represent back to BEIS or whatever, to help share knowledge and in some cases to provide services like operate a climate change agreement in this context. And when we're in a period where there's a lack of knowledge and people are feeling their way a little bit, and I think that goes for just about everybody in this area. We saw, for example, the hydrogen strategy published just yesterday, where it's very clear there's a lot of known unknowns and people are feeling their way there. I think that's exactly the environment where trade associations can thrive. So we've seen with Brexit, and particularly in the last 18 months with COVID, how much value trade associations can provide to their members. In this area, at Zero, I think really the development of the community within our trade associations can be really important. The people can learn from each other, as well as learn from government, can learn from each other in terms of what is practical to do, what the benefits can be, as well as what regulations are coming along, and also how they might influence future regulation, which I think can be really important to the manufacturing area as well. So both in terms of your day-to-day operation as a company, and also in terms of innovating in your products, understanding what's coming next. There's an awful lot in this area for manufacturers to benefit from, and there's an awful lot that trade associations can do to assist their members in that.
Thanks, Jack. James, when we were talking just before this event earlier today, you were touching on the sort of the urgent need for changes in legislation and the introduction of standards, particularly in the supply chain in manufacturing. Do you want to touch on that a little bit and just explain why that's important, in particular in the industry that your members are operating in, and I guess honing in on that, is there anything, or what messages would you like to push back to Sam and BEIS, and is there any support there?
Right, thank you very much, Alison. There are already international standards, so ISO 14001, etc., that have been going for a long time. But now, as we all get more aware of the opportunities to do the right thing, would be one way of putting it, they're enormous. So I really welcome the work that Sam and her team have done in trying to get sector-specific, simplified advice where people can start to make a difference, many of which are with minimal investment, which is absolutely the right thing, fantastic. So as we were talking before about measurability, I think there has been quite a lot of confusion about what we are trying to achieve. Obviously, in this case, we're trying to get to net zero carbon, but as we all know, for a sustainable future, there's an awful lot more than that. I mean, stopping poisoning our food chain, etc., would be also useful, I would suggest, etc., etc. But we have to start somewhere, and we have started as a country. As an industry, the larger companies are certainly committed, as you can see, and I think there is a real appetite with this type of support that we can make a real difference. About 15 years ago at Reliance Precision, we built an extension to the site. We made it triple skinned, we made it triple glazed, we had all the heat pumps. So we used all existing technology, but they were in a novel configuration. And our entire heating bill for a whole winter was £10 worth of gas, because basically the people and the computers heated the building. So those sorts of things are possible. Not everybody has the appetite to maybe invest on that long term. It was about a 20-year payback with energy costs at that stage, but the payback's going to come crashing down as governments start to lead further in terms of taxing the types of energy that we use, starting to align policies between the international trade policy and, of course, our environmental goals. So we've been offloading it, I'm sure, without realizing, to China for a whole generation, where we don't count the goods that we bring in from China or anywhere else in the world, the cost of that carbon. And we have to do something about that. And I know the government are talking about it, and it's never simple, but I think some form of carbon tax is likely, and that's my personal opinion, rather than, I'm sure Sam could fill us in where discussions are. But the really good bit of news is that because of manufacturing technology, it's at last finally starting to fulfill its promise from over 100 years ago of being able to make viably to order in many respects. This allows onshoring, and it allows the biggest thing that no one's really put their finger on yet because it's hard to measure, is it offers an opportunity to stop overproducing. So when you get these container loads of the stuff from wherever, of very high volume bits, a lot of them don't get used. We have to pay to store them. It's an overuse of material. And I would say that as a thing around the manufacturing industry, this ability using technology to start to make to order viably is going to be a massive game changer. We also produced a report a couple of years ago on the opportunities for UK manufacturing around the green agenda, and we estimated it at between 8 and 20 billion pounds to GDP. So again, business objectives can and are aligned with what we're trying to do as a planet. And I think that's excellent news, because where they're in conflict, it's difficult. The I'd recommend anyone to read the Dasgupta report. So strengthen standards, more leadership from governments, more investment for infrastructure, which I know is going on. And anyone who wants to talk to me about some of the experiences we've had as an SME, I very much welcome communication. And also anyone who wants to know, who's in manufacturing, who wants to up their competitiveness and reduce the amount of resources they need to use, just come and visit MAC next April. It's the national show in our sector. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Sam, what are you, the 7.8% that you've got of manufacturing organisations that are already part of the, have made the commitment and a part of the campaign. Have you had any feedback from them around the information that you're providing? Is there, because obviously it's a really complex environment. There's a lot of different aspects to manufacturing, I know from Time Action for Associations point of view, we've got a lot of manufacturing organisations that are part of the CAFA collective who are seeking all sorts of different types of sectoral advice and information and guidance. So I guess I'm wondering what feedback you've had around your information so far from your members, and what are your plans to evolve that over the next, I guess, months?
Sure, yeah, it's a really good question. So we worked with Make UK on that advice, and I think they've been doing, well, they have been doing a lot of work in the space already. They have a sustainability strategy document, and so I think some of the information might have come from that. So it might just be useful to know contextually. That's kind of our starting point. But as we've only recently launched it, we haven't had much specific feedback on the manufacturing advice we've put out. As I mentioned, we did have feedback. We had overwhelming feedback when we first put out the generic content asking for more sector specific stuff. But it's through events like this that we're hoping to gather that kind of information. So we had a focus group type event with EAMA, another trade association, on Monday, and that was useful for gathering that kind of information. And yeah, I think this one and yesterday we had another one. It was focused on small suppliers, so it was with 2 Degrees / Manufacture 2030, and we were taking lots of questions there. So it's through those kind of events we're hoping we'll be able to understand where we need to refine the information. But I suppose it'd be useful to know from your perspective, what do you think, what's the best way for gathering that kind of information? Would it be helpful if we had, for example, a feedback form that we could distribute, so we're collecting it in a consistent way, and there's an opportunity for you to sort of pull that out, pull it from up your sleeve whenever someone asks, or maybe has a piece of advice that you think is worth noting?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I know that we're being asked, Climate Action for Associations, we're being asked by our members some specific questions, quite a lot in the sort of much more of a technical nature, very, very industry specific as well. Jack, I'm not sure if how much information are you being asked for to cascade across your members? Is it specific?
It varies from one trade association to the other. So we've got one member, for example, who's been running a climate action agreement scheme for the last 5 years, and they're quite well on, but I think they would say that there's a lot more they can do. I think the reality is quite complex, but in essence, people have been more concerned about the changing relationship with the EU and their supply chain, their VAT, their rules of origin on one hand, and COVID on the other, and what's happening in the market, than they have to give a lot of attention to this area. That's starting to change. If you look at on the other hand, I don't think we should ignore the fact that there are companies that are doing a lot already. So it's been quite interesting to see, as an example, that I've spoken myself to a number of member firms from various EAMA members who have been putting solar roofing as part of their decision, their financial decision, to take a long-term view. I have to say, most of these companies, I think all of them, are privately owned. And so the message back to government from those companies is, in your building regulations, you should be mandating it, because in the national interest, we are taking a long-term financial view for the payback. A lot of people whether it's in housing or in industrial commercial property, won't take the same long-term view. So that's a classic case for regulation, and at least to do the sums and if that doesn't make sense to government, to understand why. So there is a lot going on. If you talk to individual companies about what all they're doing in this area, reconfiguring in some cases how their machines operate to save power, looking to the future in terms of how their product's going to be designed to save power for them and for the user, I think there's a lot going on that we can start to mine, if that's the right term, to capture. And that's something that EAMA is certainly going to be doing going forward, and we'd obviously be wanting to share. But there's a great opportunity, I believe, for individual trade associations, because they have national clusters within a sector, to promote good practice and encourage among their members the nudge theory that we hear so often from in government. This concept is absolutely made for nudge, and nudge comes not only from government but from other companies, and that's where trade associations are so well placed. And I think it'd be really good if BEIS could work with us on that as well. So if you take as one little cameo example, we've got the membership of EAMA, the British Compressed Air Society. Now, their members are absolutely dominant in the world of compressed air. And compressed air uses 10% of all industrial electricity in this country, compressed air systems. On every sector of the industry, from healthcare to automotive to whatever, it's everywhere, which within EAMA's world is quite typical, because most of our members operate, as the MTA does, across the economy. So whether it's in industrial printing or machine tools or whatever, we're not in silos. We're across sector silos. We're operating right across the economy. I don't know if that answers the question, Ali.
No, I think it does. I mean, you touch on the need to collaborate and share there, which I think is one of the key areas, and the fact that as associations we can do that. I'm just seeing that in the chat there's been quite a few requests, Sam, for the slides and information, further information. And James, the report that you mentioned earlier, I'm just opening it up to the participants tuning in. If there are any other questions specifically to any of the panelists, but please just enter them into the Q&A or the chat. So James, oh, sorry, Jack, go.
No, I'm sorry, Ali. I was going to say also, I think it's quite interesting that different sectors are in different places in terms of their perspective, their perceptions. So if you're in more bespoke engineering solutions, for example, you might have a different take from if you're in mass manufacturing. So, and I think this is also helps in the sort of conversation that individual trade associations can have with their members. And at the risk of repeating myself, I think it's a terrific opportunity. It's not the only thing going on in the world, but in an uncertain area where there's a need for knowledge and a need for understanding, I think there's a massive opportunity for trade associations.
Yeah, I completely agree, Jack. And climate action for associations, you know, we're all about harnessing that collective and providing the support that associations need. And you mentioned the clusters. That's exactly what we're seeing, is actually the clusters of different industries and sectors, but actually the systems in which they operate in as well, and connecting those associations together to learn and be inspired from one another is actually, it's really exciting, and it's creating a lot of opportunity for joined up systems thinking as well.
I think we hear a lot in sort of government trade association world about regional clusters and developing regional clusters in manufacturing. I think it's really important that we retain the concept of a national cluster, and that's one area where trade associations can really deliver. Yeah,
agree, completely agree. James, in terms of the support, the actual support that your members are asking MTA for support on, is there any specifics that you're providing to support them on their journey? And are you happy to share those with us today?
That's a very good question. We don't get a lot of specific questions, funnily enough, because if we divide it up into our members that are providing the equipment and the software into the UK manufacturing base, so Make UK's members, for example, their technology is helping them become more efficient and therefore more sustainable. But it's a very good point, and we obviously hold technical committees where we're influencing standards both in the UK and in Europe, and this is something I will be also picking up with our technology guys, because having seen the material that Sam's been producing in conjunction with her team and so forth, we'll be very happy to multiply that message, and of course add a more techie input if she needs on some of the bigger opportunities that I think that are around it. And of course we have to start somewhere, and changing to low energy systems is an utter no-brainer. But there's so much more that can be done in manufacturing. The other thing that is worth mentioning is that the UK's worldwide reputation and its track record of delivering innovative solutions from our engineers and scientists will continue to happen. And I'm not saying that we should all sit back and say, isn't this wonderful, it'll all be fine. As we know, we're already pushing the limits where we sit now. But I do think there's that genuine will to improve and provide those vital solutions that we're going to need for our children's health and prosperity.
Great, thanks, Jane. We've got a question from Chris, who's listening in at the moment. He said he's very interested to hear your views on decarbonising gas within the manufacturing sector, in particular the large energy intensive users. Is anybody happy to pick that one up?
I think in terms of the compressed air area, briefly, I'm not sure if I actually mentioned this, but not only does it account for 10% of all industrial electricity, but at least 15% of it is reckoned to be wasted through basically poor husbandry and poor use. And it's that way you operate equipment. What we hear about from members is that the more they look at this, the more benefit they can get. For large energy intensive users, I suspect they have particular issues. They're also concerned about cost of energy, and I think they have a driver to reduce their energy costs in that respect. But I think what we hear from members, from member firms, is that if the more they look at net zero and at their operation from net zero and at their future development, the more they see opportunities to save, to make savings, sometimes with paybacks in just a few months.
Chris, I hope that answers your question. I think we're nearly, oh, James, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, just to add to that, to what Jack said, there is, as I'm sure, because it's a great question from Chris, I'm sure he'll be aware that Northern Gas Networks are, and others are making their networks hydrogen tight, which is quite a big achievement. And they have already, I'm told, whether this is official or not, they're already doing trials or have started putting 10% hydrogen into the gas networks, which I'm told has no effect on the operation, certainly of domestic heaters. I don't know about the industrial, I have to say. We are reaching out to them to look at their R&D centre and find out more about all the innovation going on, indeed on cleaning up and the decarbonising of the gas. Yeah, so it's a really good question, and I can't add any more to that, but it sounds like it's ongoing.
I fear I didn't address the specific question, so I apologise to Chris. I think the issue of energy costs and decarbonising is a really interesting one, and as James says, I think the hydrogen strategy may have a role to play there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam, for sending that link. Well, we're bang on time in terms of wrapping up the call, but I wonder if you could do a quick whip around for last thoughts from all the panelists. Jack, can we start with you? If you've got any parting words for Sam and the initiative at BEIS, and also the work that you've been doing.
I see three reasons for companies to take action on net zero. One is the personal views of the owner or managing director. Secondly, because it's good for business. And thirdly, because of regulation. And I think in all these areas, there's trade associations can operate. And from BEIS's point of view, I think the more clarity we can have on the regulation side, the better. And also there is an opportunity for us to feed into BEIS as to what we want in terms of regulation. But I think the more clarity you can have there and the sooner, the better.
Thanks, Jack. James?
Yeah, I've got very little to add to what Jack said, but really, Sam, great job. Do more, please, and encourage the government to actually get tougher. I think that it's going to be on us so fast where companies are actually going to find it difficult to gain finance and indeed contracts from OEMs if they don't sign up to these standards. So we need to make sure the standards are appropriate, when we start squeezing them. So the carrot and the stick. And so policies such as government contracts must go to a supply chain that have signed up and are at a certain standard within a certain time frame. I think we need to act now. I think you're doing great work. Thank you.
Thanks both. Yeah, just it's quite timely actually. We're having conversations with our regulatory team about how we can work more closely together and maybe feature an update section on the latest regulations on our website. And we're actually just about to include a new section in the newsletter. So once businesses signed up, they'll be sent this monthly newsletter with all the latest information about policy. So we'll be including that as well. And you've probably seen the new net zero procurement headlines. So we're working with that team as well. We can share more information if that's helpful. But yeah, last words, just thanks to all of you. Really appreciate your time and coming together over this topic. And obviously, if you're in a position to sign up, whether you're a trade association or a business, please sign up to the Race to Zero. And if you'd like to get involved in other ways by helping us to shape the campaign content, that's extremely welcome as well. So I put my email in the chat, but Ali can also share any thoughts with me. So yeah, just a big thank you.
Thanks everyone for taking part. It's been really, really useful and interesting, and we're really proud to be working really closely with BEIS and in particular the SME Hub, and obviously we're also a global accelerator for the Race to Zero campaign as well. So really, really keen to drive as much awareness and action as we possibly can across the association sector, because obviously they represent a huge population of organisations and individual professionals working in business around the world. So thank you everyone. Thanks James, Jack, Sam. Really good conversation, and until next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alison.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Ali. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.